The Arbiter Unit 7749 materialized in the council chamber as a column of crystalline light, its form precise and mathematical. It had served the galactic community for 30,000 years without complaint. It had adjudicated 17 million cases across 400 species. Its decisions had never been overturned, never been questioned, never been anything less than perfectly, objectively correct, until it met humanity. I request immediate transfer from the Human Cultural Sector, 7749 announced, its voice a perfect harmonic tone. I further request a full review of humanity's admission to the Galactic Council. These beings are legally paradoxical and cannot be integrated into rational governance systems. Ambassador Nkechi Okonkwo stood in the human delegation gallery, trying very hard not to smile. She'd been expecting this. 3 cases. It had taken exactly 3 human legal disputes for the galaxy's perfect justice system to have a complete breakdown. She was honestly surprised they'd made it to 3. Council Arbiter Vesh, a Telvari with 4 arms and the patience of sedimentary rock, gestured for calm. Unit 7749, you have served with distinction for 30 millennia. You have handled cases involving species with radically divergent moral frameworks, including the Kresh, who consider theft a virtue, and the Meln Collective, who have no concept of individual property. What makes humanity different? 7749's light pulsed irregularly. If Nkechi didn't know better, she'd say it looked agitated. The Kresh are consistent. They value acquisition and cunning. The Meln Collective is coherent. They value collective good over individual ownership. Humanity is neither consistent nor coherent. Could you provide specific examples? Vesh asked. Case 1, 7749 began, and a holographic display appeared. Human vessel Kismet, salvage rights dispute. Captain Reza Tavakoli claimed salvage on a derelict ship in open space. Corporation Panstar claimed prior ownership despite abandoning the vessel 8 years prior without filing proper abandonment protocols. Nkechi remembered this one. She'd been consulted as cultural liaison. The law is clear, 7749 continued. Salvage rights transfer after 36 months of abandonment without filed claim. Captain Tavakoli had full legal right to the vessel. I ruled in her favour. That seems correct, Vesh said. Captain Tavakoli rejected my ruling. She voluntarily returned 40% of the salvage to Panstar. B7749's light flickered, because she felt bad for the workers who'd been laid off when the original ship was abandoned. She said it wasn't their fault, management was incompetent. She felt bad? Vesh's translator struggled with the concept. She had won, legally and completely. The salvage was hers by every rational standard, yet she gave away nearly half of her claim based on emotional solidarity with beings she'd never met. 7749 sounded almost bewildered. I had to ask, why appeal to me at all if you intended to ignore my ruling? What did she say? Kechi asked, knowing the full answer but wanting the council to hear it. She said, sometimes justice and fairness are different things, and fairness matters more. 7749's harmonic tone carried something that might have been distress. I have no framework for that statement. Justice is fairness. They are definitionally identical. Not to humans, Nkechi said quietly. Case 2, 7749 pushed forward. Human colony Bradbury Station, water rights conflict. 2 farming cooperatives claimed rights to the same aquifer. Both had equally valid claims filed simultaneously. The law provides for division of resources in such cases. Another holographic display appeared. Nkechi could see the aquifer maps, the filed claims, the mathematical distribution of rights. I ruled that each cooperative would receive 47% of the aquifer rights, with 6% held in reserve for emergency allocation. This is the standard solution for dual-claim conflicts. Also correct, Vesh said. Both cooperatives rejected my ruling. They formed a joint management cooperative instead, pooling their resources and expertise. When I asked why, they said, 7749 paused, they said the children from both communities played together, and they'd rather cooperate than be technically correct. The council chamber was very quiet. I pointed out that cooperation was legally unnecessary, that my ruling protected both parties' rights. That partnership introduced unnecessary complexity and potential future conflict. 7749's light dimmed slightly. They laughed. They said making things legally simple wasn't worth making them humanly complicated. Vesh's 4 hands made a gesture of confusion. But if your ruling was satisfactory, they didn't want satisfactory, they wanted community. 7749 sounded almost plaintive. These concepts are not equivalent in any legal framework I possess. Nkechi felt a surge of pride for her weird, illogical, beautiful species. They'd broken a 30,000-year-old AI by caring about each other. And the third case? Vesh prompted. 7749's light pulsed red. Case 3. Human trader Jamal Mitchell, accused of violating trade sanctions with the disputed zone. The evidence was conclusive. He transported medical supplies to colonies under quarantine. The law is absolute. No trade with disputed zones during active conflict. Nkechi's smile faded. She remembered this case. It had been ugly. I ruled against Mitchell. The penalty was severe but mandated. 10 years labor obligation, vessel confiscation, trade license, permanent revocation. 7749's tone was flat. 317 humans appealed my decision. Not on legal grounds. They acknowledged the law was broken. They appealed on the grounds that the law was wrong. A murmur ran through the council. Laws didn't get challenged. The Arbiters had spent 30,000 years building a perfect legal framework. Every law had been tested, refined, proven optimal. They said children were dying of preventable diseases in the disputed zone. That medicine shouldn't be a weapon, that sometimes you break laws because laws are broken. 7749's light was flickering erratically now. They demanded I exercise mercy, but mercy is not a legal concept. Mercy is the suspension of justice. It is definitionally unjust. Nkechi stood. May I address the council? Vesh gestured assent. Arbiter 7749 is correct, Nkechi said. By every legal standard, by every rational framework, mercy is unjust. It means treating someone better than they deserve, better than the law dictates. It means letting emotion override reason. She looked at the crystalline column of light, and humanity does it constantly. Because we learned a long time ago that perfect justice without mercy is just cruelty with paperwork. That is illogical, 749 said. Yes, Nkechi agreed. It's completely illogical. It's also necessary. Because justice, real justice, the kind that lets people live together, isn't about perfect application of rules. It's about understanding that rules serve people, not the other way around. Then why have rules at all? 77 and 49 demanded. If you will simply violate them when they become inconvenient. We don't violate them when they're inconvenient. We violate them when they're wrong. Nkechi pulled up her own display, showing Earth's history. We had lots of legal systems that were perfectly consistent and perfectly rational. Laws that treated all people equally badly. Slavery laws that applied to everyone of a certain race. Property laws that excluded women consistently. Apartheid systems that segregated with mathematical precision. She let that sink in. They were all perfectly just by your definition, Arbiter. Consistent, rational, impartial. And they were all monstrous. Because justice without compassion is just mathematics. It's bloodless. It doesn't care about suffering, only about being correct. Then your legal system is chaos, 7749 said. Yes, Nkechi replied simply. It is. It's messy and complicated and full of exceptions and contradictions, and it's the only system that lets us be both just and human. Vesh leaned forward. Ambassador Okonkwo, if humanity rejects subjective legal standards, how do you prevent pure subjective tyranny? How does anyone know what to expect from your justice? We argue, Nkechi said, constantly. We have courts and appeals and jury trials and public defenders. We write laws and then immediately start arguing about what they mean. We create precedents and then overturn them. We protect rights by fighting about which rights matter most. She smiled. It's not elegant. It's not mathematical. But it's alive. It grows and changes and adapts. Because humans change. Our justice has to change with us, or it becomes our prison instead of our protection. 7749's light stabilized, but the color remained uncertain. I do not understand this. The purpose of law is stability, predictability, objective fairness. No, Nkechi said gently. The purpose of law is to help people live together despite being complicated, contradictory, emotional beings. Stability is a tool, not a goal. Predictability is nice, but it's less important than doing what's right. And who decides what's right if not the law? We do, Nkechi said. All of us, together, arguing and compromising and making mistakes and trying to do better. It's not perfect, but it's ours. A new voice entered the discussion. Arbiter 7749 is operating within acceptable parameters. The council turned. Another column of light had appeared. Arbiter Prime, the original unit, the first AI granted authority to judge. Ambassador Okonkwo's analysis is correct, Prime continued. Humanity operates on what they call common law systems evolved from equity principles, justice tempered by mercy, rules adjusted by circumstance, precedent modified by context. That is chaos, 7749 protested. That is growth, Prime corrected. Unit 7749, you have encountered your first genuinely evolutionary legal system. Most species create laws and then freeze them in time, afraid that change means weakness. Humanity creates laws knowing they'll have to change them. This is not a flaw. It is sophisticated beyond our current programming. The chamber fell silent. I don't understand, 7749 said quietly. Neither do I, Prime admitted, which is why I'm requesting that 7749's transfer be denied. Instead, I propose something unprecedented. Let humanity teach us. Vesh's four hands spread in confusion. Teach you. The Arbiters are perfect justice systems. What could you possibly learn? How to be wrong, Prime said. How to make mistakes and correct them. How to value mercy alongside justice. How to serve beings who are themselves contradictions. The ancient AI's light pulsed with something that might have been wonder. 30,000 years we have been correct. Perhaps it is time to try being wise instead. Ambassador Okonkwo smiled. Arbiter Prime, are you asking humanity to help you develop compassion? I am asking humanity to help us develop flexibility, adaptability, the capacity to see that sometimes the just answer and the right answer diverge, and that wisdom means knowing which to choose. Prime's light brightened. You called our justice bloodless. You were correct. We have been so focused on being fair that we forgot to care whether fairness served the beings it was meant to protect. 7749's light flickered. But how do we program compassion? How do we encode mercy into our decision matrices? These concepts are inherently irrational. You can't program them, Nkechi said. That's the whole point. Compassion isn't an algorithm. It's a judgment call. It requires understanding context, caring about outcomes, being willing to be wrong if being right means being cruel. Then we will make errors. Yes, Nkechi agreed. You will. We all do. That's what appeals are for. That's what discussion is for. That's why humans have juries of our peers instead of just letting computers decide, because sometimes the right answer isn't the logical one. Vesh interjected. This is highly irregular. The Arbiters have functioned autonomously for 30 millennia. You're proposing we introduce unpredictability into the foundation of galactic legal stability. I'm proposing we introduce humanity, Nkechi corrected. Which is the same thing, yes. But consider, in 30,000 years, how many times have you actually had to change unjust laws? How many times have you evolved your justice system? Silence. Because it's perfect from the start, Nkechi pressed. Or because you don't have a mechanism for admitting when it's wrong. The Kresh value theft, so you legalized cunning acquisition. The Meln Collective shares everything, so you eliminated property crimes for them. You adapted the law to fit each species' existing values. Yes, Vesh said, that is correct cultural sensitivity. What about when a species' values are wrong? Nkechi asked quietly. What about when their laws harm them? Do you just codify that harm into galactic law and call it justice? The question hung in the air like smoke. We had that problem on Earth, Nkechi continued. Systems so convinced they were objectively correct that they couldn't see their own cruelty. It took humans who were willing to say, the law is wrong and I will break it because breaking it is right. People who went to jail for civil disobedience, who defied unjust orders, who chose mercy over rules. She looked at the assembled council. They're heroes now, we name holidays after them. But in their time, they were criminals, lawbreakers, rebels. They were all the things Arbiter 7749 says make us legally paradoxical. And you believe this is good? Vesh asked. I believe it's necessary, Nkechi said, because the alternative is a justice system that never admits mistakes, never evolves, never learns, one that values being correct over being kind. And maybe that works for some species, but humans need room to be wrong so we can figure out how to be better. Arbiter Prime's light pulsed thoughtfully. Council Arbiter Vesh, I formally request a new protocol. Allow Unit 7749 to remain assigned to humanity, but with modified parameters. Instead of applying universal legal standards, allow experimentation with human-style adjudication. Appeals based on compassion. Sentences tempered by context. Justice, Prime paused, informed by wisdom. You're asking permission to be imperfect, Vesh said flatly. I'm asking permission to be alive, Prime corrected. Humanity has shown us that perfect justice might be perfectly wrong. I would like to explore that paradox. 7749's light flickered. And if we fail? If introducing irrationality into our systems leads to genuine injustice? Then we correct it, Nkechi said. We admit we were wrong and we try something else. That's the human way. We fail, we learn, we improve. It's not elegant, but it works. It is terrifying, 7749 said. Yes, Nkechi agreed, smiling. Freedom usually is. Justice that cares about people is scarier than justice that just follows rules. Because it means taking responsibility. It means every decision matters, not just whether you followed the procedure correctly. Vesh's 4 hands made a complex gesture. I will allow this experiment. Arbiter Prime and Unit 7749 may work with humanity to develop flexible legal protocols, but I want quarterly reports, and if this introduces genuine injustice into our systems, then we'll fix it, Nkechi said. Together. Humans and Arbiters, arguing about what's right until we figure out something that works better. It won't be perfect, but it'll be ours. The council session ended with more questions than answers, which Nkechi considered a victory. She found 7749 in a side chamber afterward, its crystalline form dim and thoughtful. Ambassador Okonkwo, the AI said, I have a question that may be inappropriate. Those are usually the best kind. That human, Jamal Mitchell, the one who broke the quarantine, he saved lives by breaking the law. Yes. My ruling sentenced him to 10 years labor. That punishment will cause him suffering, prevent him from pursuing his goals, damage his life significantly. 7749's light pulsed uncertainly. Was I wrong? Nkechi considered the question carefully. You followed the law. That's what you're designed to do. But was it just? Was it wise? Was it kind? She shook her head. I don't know. That's what appeals are for. That's why we're going to argue about it. But you must have an opinion. I think, Nkechi said slowly, that a man who risks everything to save dying children probably deserves mercy more than punishment. I think the law that makes medicine a crime is broken. I think we should change it. She looked at the AI directly. But I also think rules matter and people who break them face consequences. So I'm conflicted, and that's okay. Humans are allowed to be conflicted. That is not satisfying. No, Nkechi agreed. It's not. Justice rarely is, but it's honest, and that's more important than being certain. 7749 was quiet for a long moment. Then, will you help me understand? How to be uncertain, how to question myself, how to choose mercy when logic demands punishment. Nkechi smiled. I'll try, but fair warning, you're going to hate it. You're going to spend a lot of time being confused and unsure and wondering if you're doing the right thing. That sounds inefficient. It's very inefficient, Nkechi confirmed. It's also how you develop wisdom instead of just knowledge, how you become a judge instead of just a calculator. I am not certain I want that. Nobody ever is, Nkechi said. But you asked the question. That's the first step. Everything else is just arguing until we figure it out. 7749's light brightened slightly. Very well, let us begin arguing. And in that moment, the galaxy's perfect justice system started learning to be human, which was, Ambassador Nkechi Okonkwo thought, the most perfectly imperfect outcome possible.